Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, a regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me this afternoon, we have Erik Lopez, Chief Supply Chain Officer of ULTA Beauty, Rick Faulk, CEO of Locus Robotics, and Ash Sharma, Vice President of Research at Interact Analysis. We're here to discuss strategies for building robust and adaptable logistics networks. Our panel will explore cutting-edge approaches to managing supply chain resilience. The discussion will also delve into how companies can leverage advanced technologies, data analytics, and innovative operational strategies to withstand disruptions and maintain efficiency in an increasingly complex global marketplace. Gentlemen, it's great to have all of you with us. Before we get into the conversation, if we can just get a brief understanding, Erik, I'm going to start with you, of where you fit with the supply chain ecosystem and how you all interact.
Hi, Joe. I oversee our supply chain at ULTA Beauty, which includes our retail distribution, e-commerce fulfillment, supply chain planning and operations, supplier operations, and then our supply chain strategy and the system transformation.
All right. And Rick, if we can learn more about Locus.
Great. Well, Jill, thanks for having us. So when everyone places an order online, it looks very easy. You go to a web page, click a link, stick in your credit card, and you expect that item to arrive basically within hours or a day or so. The reality is it's very complicated on the back end. What happens for Erik and others to actually process that order and get it out the door, they deal with basically four major problems: labor, scalability, efficiency, and analytics. And that's where Locus comes in with autonomous mobile robots to be able to address those problems.
Right. And as you're taking a look at these trends from a more holistic level with the research you're involved in.
Yeah, that's right, Jill. So we're providing market intelligence to the global supply chain automation industry. So we're helping retailers and automation vendors to understand how to be successful in the sector.
And Erik, let's talk about supply trends and evolution for a moment here. Having contributed to ULTA's bottom line, it is fascinating to me how all those SKUs can be managed from suppliers all around the world. And to your point, getting them as the customer expects in a timely manner, sometimes same day.
Yeah, thanks, Joe, and thanks for being an avid shopper. I appreciate that. For us, it's all about meeting our guests where they need and what they need. And so our transformation really focuses on the right technology to fit our vast assortment of SKUs. As you spoke about, we have a vast array of lipstick to hair dryer. So our supply chain is going to be agile to be able to meet that, and using the right technology to make sure that we're most efficient. I would say that the key for us, though, is to balance technology and the efficiency along with our people, who is the heartbeat of our teams.
And Rick, when you think about the warehouse operating as efficiently as it can, I would imagine automation, it can't even be an afterthought. It is primary to everything.
Well, you're right, Jill, it is primary. For folks like Erik and others, to really deal with the volumes that are out there, to deal with seasonal peaks, they need automation. And innovative businesses like ULTA Beauty and others have adopted automation to be able to do that. And it's not just about labor efficiency, but it's also about improved safety, improved work environments for the employees as well. I mean, working in a warehouse before automation, a worker could walk 12 to 15 miles a day. It's like a big exercise club, if you will. And with automation, they're still going to walk, but it's going to be much more efficient. So automation plays a big, big role in that. And also upscaling the workforce, which I know is important to ULTA Beauty as well. Being able to provide better jobs, more fulfilling jobs is also part of the whole automation journey.
Yeah, and Ash, let's talk about some of the trends in terms of how it's evolving as it relates to supply chain, because throughout the course of our coverage, you tend to hear more about sustainability. That's becoming a big factor just as much as it is getting what customers are expecting on time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's being driven both by regulatory requirements, but also through the consumers themselves being more aware of their footprint and trending towards retailers and brands that fit within their sustainability goals from a personal point of view. So there's a huge emphasis on that from a supply chain, aside from just being efficient and having the right products.
Right. And Ash, clearly geopolitical issues and global trade issues can impact the supply chain regardless of how a well-oiled machine. you're trying to make it. What happened through COVID? What have you learned? What lessons were implemented to try and manage these issues and risks? As I mean, they're never going to go away, right? It's a dynamic world that we live in.
Yeah.
So what are some lessons that were learned, and how are you working with companies to make sure that these best practices are put in place?
I think what the most important lesson that was learned was that anything can happen, and companies need to be set up for unpredictable, unforeseen events, and having flexibility in their supply chains, being able to react very quickly to unforeseen changes is absolutely key for their survival and for them to thrive in the global economy. So there's been a lot of learnings from that, and as a result, companies have really invested in beefing up their supply chains and investing in automation.
Yeah. And Erik, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, because your particular business, the supply chain industry and retail industry, is continuously evolving. I mean, the trends are, as soon as you get product to the store, the trends are always evolving. How do you embrace that as an opportunity and continue to stay up with the dynamics of the industry?
It's a great question. Supply chain is evolving so incredibly fast, and it's up to us to make sure we're ahead of it. And balancing what is just a flash in the pan versus what's a long-term impact. I would say for us, we're looking at automation with partners like with Locus on robotics, like AMRs, autonomous mobile robots. Additionally, we're looking at AI machine learning for order optimal sourcing. And then we're starting to look at end-to-end visibility as well as predictive analytics. So the goal is, how do you stay ahead of it? How do you make sure you're staying ahead of this and not being caught from behind?
Rick, how are you working with companies like ULTA to help balance those needs for efficiency and stay on top of those trends in a dynamic market where it's constantly changing? What are some best practices that will lead to sustainable solutions?
Yeah, I think like ULTA has done, you have to do something. And this is an industry that's been around logistics for, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years, even longer. And it's an industry very committed to sort of what they've done in the past, and they've always done it a certain way. And folks like ULTA and others are now looking at automation and actually doing something about it. And I think that's the most important thing, is actually taking action and doing something.
Yeah, and I'm looking here that you recently launched Locus Hub. I would imagine the data that you're able to leverage from there has been a game changer.
Well, it has. AI is, the fashionable word these days, and the reality is Locus has been doing AI for a very long time. We want to give folks like Erik information to manage his facility a lot better, to manage his workers a lot better, to optimize his workflows within his building. And our robots basically are big data collection devices that travel around a building and produce all this data. We produce literally billions of data points every single month. All those can't be consumed in one whack, but what we do is synthesize those down and give them to operators like Erik, so he can operate his facility much more efficiently.
Ash, what about managing the balance for the need for these emerging technologies and those advancements, with the challenge of being patient, assuring that risk management resources are in place so that you can have the best experience? You're not simply rushing with an emerging technology solution for the sake of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the companies that have heavily invested in technology and cutting edge technology, they've done it over a period of years. So they have piloted and done this really at a phased approach, where they've tested out the technology very extensively before jumping in with both feet. And you're now seeing the fruits of those labor, where they are bringing in some advanced technology across all their stores or warehouses. But it is something that takes place over time. It's not something that's done overnight, certainly.
Yeah, and Erik, of course, data is essential. It is the table stakes when it comes to marketing to your customers in the most efficient way, getting their feedback, and of course, building trust. I think that's really the key word, establishing trust as we learn how to leverage data in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the biggest concerns, I would say, is over data usage, right?
Yeah. And Erik, I would imagine the same is true as well, right? When you think about how you can leverage this type of data, but again, the 43 million active members in the ULTA community, I mean, there's a lot of trust that's placed there.
Data is critical for, like you said, table stakes for us. And what's even more paramount is that you can have information overload. So how do you have the data? How do you use those insights? But also how do you upskill and develop the talent to be able to make action from those words? So for us, we have to have the trust, but we also have to be able to action and make sure our associates can actually use that to drive innovation and drive results.
Yeah, and that's what I think.
Jill,
So,
on the
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say on the robotics side, we use data basically in 4 ways. One is workflow optimization, how we can use that data to optimize the actual travel paths of a robot as they go through the building. Secondly is order intake. Erik will process thousands of orders today, and how those orders come into the system and then get optimized to minimize the actual footsteps of a worker through the building is important. And also labor management, as I mentioned, how they use that data to manage labor, and then make better decisions, which is the 4th point, how they can use all that aggregated in ways to make more strategic decisions about where to place labor, how to optimize facility, how to optimize their layout, and that sort of thing.
I just find it so fascinating how all of our roles, regardless of what industry you're in, has almost changed overnight, how the model works, how the strategy works, because we're learning how to use it. It's not just a technology. It's me who's using it as a reporter. Everyone across the enterprise is learning how to use it, and how roles are shifting, strategies are shifting, models are shifting. I find it fascinating to watch in real time. I can't really recall, not being a technologist, seeing this and experiencing it and being part of it day to day, which I think is quite fascinating.
The interesting thing, and I know this is important to Erik as well, is the interaction of humans and robots. And everything you said is true. The question is how you can make environments where humans and robots collaborate and become more resilient and become better operators. And at the end of the day, it's a lot about efficiency, a lot about making a safer, more pleasant work environment. And we like to think about robots making these environments culturally aware. As an example, our robots speak 35 different languages. When you walk up to a robot, you're wearing a tag, and depending on if you only speak Spanish or Japanese or Chinese or Chin or whatever, the robot will interact with you in that language. So we like to make them very, very culturally aware. And also that interaction will improve the accuracy of humans. The very fact that they have to do scanning and this sort of thing, it will improve the accuracy of humans. So that interaction between robots and humans is something that I know we all think about and how to make it better.
Yeah, I mean, Erik, from the customer perspective, improving the customer experience, I feel as if being able to leverage those tools so we have operational efficiency across the board. I find my research getting better. I know where the jump off points are. I can work on more creative type of segments. And when you visit a store like an ULTA, because more time is freed up, since there's more efficiency with the data side of it, the salespeople can interact with their clients more and be more creative. And I find, from the customer experience perspective, that to me is, it pays off in dividends there.
Yeah, I think it's a great call out, Jill. And what Rick spoke about, it's incredibly important for our technology to be very in tune with our guests and meet them where they're at. So the easier it is to digest, the different languages, anything you can do to make it faster to ramp up that experience and allow us to focus on the things that matter, which is the guest, is definitely paramount for us.
Yeah. So Ash, when you think about this, our conversation 2 to 3, even 6 months from now could look very different than it does today. How do you see this evolving? How do you see these roadmaps from a strategy perspective and governance and sustainable practices? How do you see that evolving?
I mean, there's no doubt that this is not stopping and this is not slowing down. The advancement of technology is going to accelerate, as you've seen with things like ChatGPT and how quickly that has been adopted. And that will continue. It will become something of a strategic advantage at a national level, where countries are already trying to seek dominance in advancing things like robotics and AI. So it will advance very, very quickly, I'm sure. And in 6 months' time, there will be something new, like you say. Yeah. So the only advice I can give to companies is really to embrace it rather than resist it.
Right. But Ash, what about going too quick to market or trying to implement an emerging technology strategy, weighing out that ROI, being able to communicate that to the board, to the C-suite, while also making sure that cyber and risk management best practices are being adhered to?
Well, the best companies at implementing this have global task forces. They are constantly scanning technology and testing it and piloting it and trying to deploy it in an accurate way. And then when they're happy, then rolling it out across the rest of the network for the company. So it may appear that they're doing it very quickly, but in the background, they have been involved in this technology for a long time and really testing out quite comprehensively.
Right. And then to wrap up here, Erik, when you think about balancing the human connection with the emerging technology that's being implemented, what are some of the best practices that you would recommend to make sure that that balance exists?
Yeah, I think in supply chain, it's very important that we think about our human connection versus the technology. And I'll just give you an example. Sometimes, cheaper is not always better, but quality versus quantity is always top of mind, and making sure that you could have auto-generated AI responses that give you decision points, but that might not always be the best decision point in those relationships. And that human connection and that guest focus is always going to be the center of attention for us. So how do you balance what's right where it's at for your enterprise, but also balance what's right for your people as well?
All right, gentlemen, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank
Thank
you, Jill.
you.